So under the dash, you'll see this spot here for the master cylinder, and that's where it passes through the firewall to come back in to the pedal. So what you have to do is, you can see that line in the body for the main hole for the master cylinder to pass through. So what you have to do is use a hole saw, and I'm using this guy here on an angle drill. That's the only way to get it. And then also you'll need to remove the brake pedal to get in here to get that angle drill to fit. So what I recommend is replacing the brake pedal anyway. So remove the brake pedal, get in here with your hole saw bit, and I am using a I'm not sure, but I'll post that what size it is. It's kind of tight under here in the dash, so but just go ahead and drill out your hole for your master cylinder, and then you're gonna have to drill 2 holes for the actual mounting bolts as well. And you can see there to the upper left, at about the, let's say, 10 o'clock position, you can see an indent there. That's gonna be your 1 hole for it, and then the other hole is down on the lower side. So you just have to drill those 2 holes out, and they're like about a 1/4 inch in size. Okay, so the hole size that I used for the hole saw bit was 1 3/8, and then the drill bit I'm going to use is 11/32 for my 2 mounting holes. Okay, so now you can see I have my hole for my master cylinder to pass through, and then I have my 2 mounting bolts drilled as well. Now the upper right one that you see here in this video, I drilled from the outside here just because it was easier to get to, and then the lower one, I tapped it with a tiny little drill bit to get it centered from outside, and then I went under the dash and drilled it back through towards the engine from underneath. For the master, I'm going to be using one of my clutch master kits that transfers the stock master cylinder hole over to this Tilton master cylinder. Now technically you could drill the firewall directly for this, but this kit makes it nice, and if you ever wanted to go back to a stock master, you could always do that. So this passes through the firewall like this, and then your Tilton master mounts out here, so it adapts the bolt pattern. It's a nice little billet piece, and then the Tilton master and all the hardware. Okay, so I'm back under the car, and the master cylinders pass through, and you can see how the 2 studs are passed through there, and then your actual lever to push in the master is coming through the center. So what you're going to do now is install the pedal onto those 2 studs, and then use the 2 bolts that are provided in the hardware for that adapter to cinch it down against the firewall. One thing I found that after I did the pedal install is that this guy here needed a tap ran down through it. You can kind of see down in there where they welded this nut onto this extension piece. It had some slag in there, and my push rod would not pass through. So I took it back out, and I actually ended up drilling out this back side too a little bit wider, so that if I need that much adjustment, it can pass through this end as well. So that's one thing you might want to do. It's 5/16 24. So tap that out, make sure everything's clean in there, or at least try to thread it onto your push rod before you put it in the car, so that you have enough adjustment there to get your pedal so that it can go all the way to the floor. One thing I forgot to mention is it makes it a hell of a lot easier when you take the seat out. So make sure you take the seat out when you go to do this. And now you can see here that my 3 pedals are installed. You can see the brake pedal I replaced with the 6-speed brake pedal. It's a smaller pedal. And I removed this this trim over here as well. So you'll need to remove that and the seat. That's the only interior things you need to remove to do this part. Let's go around to the front side here. And here you can see I installed the smaller reservoir size for this. It fits better, it looks better. You shouldn't need any more fluid volume than that. And then I installed the 3AN to 3AN fitting that they include in the kit. So now all I need to do is run my line down to my slave, which I already have there. So I just need to put the car back up on the lift and run that line up, tighten everything down, and then I can actually go ahead and bleed the clutch, and we should be good as far as the car goes. We should be able to start it up here shortly. So in addition to bleeding the clutch, which I'm not going to go into detail on because you probably should know how to bleed a clutch if you're doing this swap, but you need to put fluid in the transmission, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But you also need to install the drive shaft. With the automatic Supra, it comes the aluminum drive shaft comes with this billet adapter. And the way it works is you put the billet adapter onto the input shaft of the diff first, right? So that goes on, you bolt it, you tighten it down, and then you put these bolts in second. And they're a little bit tricky, they're really tight in here. And what I had to do was use a straight Allen wrench on these guys. So just be careful. This is aluminum, so you don't want to cross thread it. Just be careful when you're putting them in there. Make sure they're going in easy. Don't force anything. But that's it for the drive shaft. The slip yoke up front makes it really nice. But this install is almost complete. The next step is to do some wiring. And on this large connector that's underneath your tunnel that goes to the auto, there's these two larger ports here that go into the plug. And what you're going to do is you're going to snip those two, and you're going to connect the two that are leading back into the engine area or to the ECU, and you're going to solder them together. That is for the neutral switch, so it's always going to be, the car's always going to show that it's in neutral so that you can actually start the car. The second step is going to be the first step for our Dakota digital box. This is our speed wire, and what you're going to do is you're going to snip this blue and red wire that leads to the ECU, and then you're going to splice in a new wire that we're going to run back up into the tunnel area for our Dakota digital box. And this is going to be our output wire that we're going to send the Dakota signal out to the speedometer so that we have an actual speedo. One other thing that you should do here, since all these other connectors are not going to be used, is go through and use some electrical tape and seal up all these connectors so that you don't get road debris and water in those, so that if you ever want to come back and use those connectors at another time, you'll be able to without having a bunch of dirt and grime in them. So that's all wrapped up, and we have our blue wire, like I said, that's going to run up to our Dakota box. And then the other thing we need to do here is the speed sensor pigtail that comes in my kit. You need to add 2 extension wires to it, and those are also going to run up into our Dakota box. And then this plug here goes right up onto our speed sensor plug. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in, then I'm going to run my wires up into the dash or the center console area, and I'm going to install my Dakota box in there. One of the other wiring pieces we need to do, which is really simple, is the reverse lights. So when you put the car in reverse, your backup lights turn on. And this is the blue wired pigtail in my kit that I give you. And this is the reverse sensor here up on the passenger side front of the transmission. And the wiring for this is really simple. It is the yellow wire and the red and black wire. Those two, doesn't matter polarity wise which one goes to which, but you can see here I have my blue wire spliced into those. And we'll go ahead and put the car down, and we're going to see if our reverse light work now. Okay, so now you can see my reverse lights are working. And remember that reverse lockout mod we did in part 1. You can see how much I have to put my weight into it to get it to go over in reverse. So I have to really push over there hard to get it to go in reverse. But you can see that when I put it in reverse, my reverse lights work. All right, so my wiring under the car is pretty much done. I routed my wiring back along the trans. And then back here where the speed sensor plug is, I put a spade connector on there so I can easily disconnect this if I ever need to remove the trans. It'll be a lot easier to get my wiring undone. And then I ran some Raycam protected wire for this harness here. And this is my speed output wire, and then these are my 2 wires for my T56 sensor. And I'm going to put this up through my little tunnel cover. I'm going to drill a small hole and put a grommet in there and pass this through, and then I'll install my Dakota digital box. You can see here that my speed sensor is installed. And one thing to note, on the speed sensor there's 2 white wires. It doesn't matter, the polarity doesn't matter which one you use for the signal and which one is the ground. So it doesn't really matter, just as long as you have 2 wires running to it. That's it. I'm going to move up into the inside of the car and get this wiring finished up, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so here we are in the car, and I have the Dakota digital box installed. And the Dakota box installs really nicely here on the back side of the cover, and I just used some 2-sided tape to install it there so it stays in place. And then you'll see here is my harness that I ran up. So I drilled a small hole in the back here of the cover And I ran my harness up that holds my 3 wires. The one wire, the blue one, this is output 5, and that is going and spliced into the factory wire on the speed sensor, the 3-wire speed sensor plug. Then you have the other 2 wires are going to the T56 sensor, and that is sensor ground and signal in. So those 2 wires go to the T56 sensor. And then the other 2 wires are real simple, power and ground. So for the blue wire here on this side, I'm just running a ground to this bolt right here in the tunnel cover. And then my power wire runs up here to the front. And you can see here I'm spliced into the purple wire that goes to this blue connector. So I cut that purple wire and I spliced in. That's how I get power to my SGI box. Now, when I turn the key on, that is the setting that I used, 401. I actually went out and drove the car around a little bit. That's the setting that I used to get the speedometer to match up perfectly. But this is what you should see with key on, just a solid red dot. So one of the last steps to the swap is to actually fill the trans with fluid. And here's your fill hole, and it's pretty simple. You're just gonna open that up. You're gonna pump fluid in, 4 quarts, and you can use any Dexron 3 ATF like it says there, but I prefer this stuff here. And this is Redline MT85 full synthetic gear oil, very similar to ATF, just a little bit thicker, which I actually think is better, coats the gears a little bit better. And some of these trans are known to rattle, and I feel like this fluid helps a little bit with that gear rattle. All right, so here's Jay's car, all done, just sitting here idling. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take it out for a test spin. I also installed a ETS front mount intercooler for the stock twins. Right now the stock airbox isn't on there because we're waiting for an intake to come in, but I'm just going to run it around here, just around the block, to get the speedometer set right. Alright, so what we're going to do here is drive around. You can see my speedo is working slightly, but I'm only going probably 3 miles an hour right now, and it's reading at like 10. So we're going to drive around here a little bit, and I'm going to use this application called Speedbox, which is a phone application that'll show your speedo or your speed based on GPS. So what you're going to do is you're going to drive around with that enabled and watch your speedo, and then what you're going to do is on the Dakota box, you're going to push these set plus and minus up and down until you get your speedo reading exactly what you want. And that's as simple as it is, and that's it as far as this car goes. It's pretty much wrapped up. One of the new pieces that I got here, thanks to one of my friends, Nathan McKinney, is this little piece here that goes under the shift ball that makes it look like a factory install with the factory shift boot. So I just have the shift ball sitting on here, so I'm going to take it off, and you can see here this this piece of 3D printed plastic that Nathan makes, and what it is kind of like a cone shape that slips down over the factory or over the Sicky shifter handle, and the lock nut goes in there. So that's your lock nut for your shifter ball. So when you'll hold this on here, and then you'll twist the shifter knob. Sorry, I'm using my phone, so I can't do this. But you'll twist the shift knob against there to tighten it up, and then you'll slip the boot back up over this for the up to this level. So that'll slide down on. The shift boot will come back up over or up to this lip, and it looks amazing when it's done. It makes it look like a factory installed transmission.